So, I think that means there's going to be some pressure. And thank you for that introduction, Caitlin. I couldn't have written it better myself. I did write it myself. And I'm going to walk away from the microphone here in a minute. This is really to jog your blood a little bit, to wake you up because it's almost lunchtime. And then I'll walk away and try to speak really loud, hopefully not too loud. But like you said, my name is Brandon Fitch. I am the program manager or director of Turning Point Recovery Community Center. And what we get to do on a daily basis is meet people where they're at. And that's such a loose term, right? Meet people where they're at. And that could mean physically, that could mean where they are on their journey to recovery, or their stage of change. And most of the time we meet people in that pre-contemplation stage or that ambivalent stage. But it's really great to be able to work with individuals and use our lived experience to help them take the next steps. So, the idea of this presentation is to discuss multiple pathways. And I know the title says all pathways. There is no way we're going to be able to discuss all pathways to recovery. So that's the disclaimer today. There's multiple pathways to recovery, and it's so very important that we focus on really supporting individuals making their own choices with a little bit of guidance and finding what works best for them. A little bit of a backstory, and I caught the tail end of Donald's portion, but we got to meet last night, and I know he's a great presenter and he's got a great story. But a little backstory about myself is I am a person in recovery myself. Proud of that. I never understood what people meant by I'm a proud person in recovery, or I'm grateful to be an addict or an alcoholic. I always thought that is the most insane thing to say because there's so much baggage that comes along with that. But the reality is, my life prior to active addiction, my life prior to recovery was a mess. And because of the tools that I learned in recovery, I was able to become a better human being, a more humble human being, and I am so very grateful for that. And with that, I also had a community that supported those changes, and that is extremely valuable as well. So that's why it is so important that we do focus and support all forms of recovery. I myself had multiple introductions to recovery in different aspects. I was introduced to, as he mentioned, the Bill Wilson program called AA. I was introduced to recovery once again through drug court. I have had multiple opportunities to get on the path to recovery until I found a path that worked for me at that time. And I say at that time because it could take multiple paths to get me on the right track. So first, we'll talk about what is recovery. So there's a lot of different definitions of recovery. A lot of us in this room may be in recovery ourselves, so recovery is different for every person. But one definition is the process in which people are able to live, work, learn, and participate fully in their communities. For some individuals, recovery is the ability to live a fulfilling life despite a disability. And for others, it implies a reduction or a complete remission of symptoms. So symptoms meaning felonies, symptom meaning misusing substances. Another definition here is a process of regaining one's life to a usable form and reclaiming one's personal power from one's illness. So before 2010, there were two definitions for recovery, one for mental illness or mental health conditions, and the other one for substance use disorder. And what they realized is most of the time, mental health and SUD go hand in hand, right? So they defined, or they came up with a working definition for both. And I think it's absolutely beautiful on how they created this. So in 2010, they came up with SAMHSA's working definition of recovery. And I like to break this down. Here it is right here. A process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Okay? You see one word that's pretty common in there, their, right? Their health and wellness, their full potential. So if we break this statement down, it's such a simple statement, But if you break it down, it is a process of change, okay? Now, everybody who enters into recovery or makes a choice to enter into recovery, that is a process of change. They're making small steps, large steps, significant ones, and it's really up to them to make those steps. It's their perception. It's not necessarily what I may want for them, but what's working for that individual. That's the most important part. So it is a process of change. And sometimes that change is just making a decision. Sometimes that change is just making a decision to make an appointment with a doctor or with a clinician to focus on mental health, right? Or a DUI assessment. That is a process of change. That is making a choice. The next part, where they're improving their health and wellness. Does that always mean going to the gym? No. Right? It could. It could. But it could be going to an SSP. A syringe services program. That could be a improvement on their health and wellness, right? So by going to an SSP, they're making a conscious choice to reduce the harm done on their body, right? It could be going to a program like Live Well. I think they're here, right there he is, back there. To either get on the PrEP medication, or if they're looking for a Hep C medication, right? They're able to start that process to improve their health and wellness. And by gosh, it could mean they're going to go to Planet Fitness too. That's where I go. I like it. And live a self-directed life. If you're in recovery or you've been in active addiction or active alcoholism, we all know at some point in time, some of us stopped making decisions on our own, right? I was there myself. I was not able to make decisions on my own for quite some time. So that is a part of this recovery process, is making those decisions and strive to reach their full potential. If we look at everybody in this room, can we all be the CEO of our company? No. We need all types of employees, right? We need all types of individuals in society. What my full potential is might be different than somebody else's full potential. And it is unnecessary and is unrealistic for me to put those expectations on a person I'm working with. That my expectation for their full potential is to have a job in the next week. Sometimes they just need a place to live, right? That could be their full potential at that moment. So meeting them where they're at that moment is a very, very valuable aspect. So SAMHSA also has this wonderful tool we get to use discussing the 4 major dimensions that support recovery. And at Turning Point, we get to use this all day long, every day, because we have individuals walking straight from the jail or straight off the streets, and they have nothing. You know, they have absolutely nothing, which I'll be honest with you is a wonderful place to start. It is a wonderful place to start. So we get to focus on these 4 major dimensions that support a life in recovery: health, home, purpose, and community. These are the solid foundations on which a person can build a brand new life. If we can help guide that individual, and I say that again, help guide them through the process of solidifying these 4 dimensions, they stand a greater chance at success in recovery, their success in their recovery. The first one is health. We talked about that a moment ago, improving their health and wellness. Overcoming or managing one's disease or symptoms, for example, abstaining from use. So abstaining from use of illicit drugs, alcohol, or non-prescribed medications is one, if one has an addiction problem. And for everyone in recovery, making informed, healthy choices that support physical and emotional well-being. And what about home? We all work in the helping field, most of us, right? One of the biggest problems that we have right now is an unhoused population, the housing shortage, wage gaps. Helping an individual find a safe and stable environment to live in can really change their life. You have plenty of options, which we'll talk about in a moment. There's sober living homes. There's a variety of different other programs that help out, HUD housing as well. And purpose. So if you know somebody who's been in active addiction for quite some time, prior to recovery, our purposes were a little bit different those days. Today, we try to be part of society as opposed to apart from society, right? We spent so much time hiding from responsibilities, hiding from authorities, hiding from taxes, hiding from all of those things. Being a part of feels so good today. Getting to go vote on a day like today as a person in recovery is phenomenal because you once again have a voice and you're using that voice. You know, those are so important. But a purpose could be meaningful daily activities. Job, going to school, volunteering, taking care of family, creative endeavors, and the independence, the income, and the resources to participate in society. I was just talking to Dallas a moment ago. We've opened up a sober living privately, and it's just amazing to see some individuals going out there and buying a boat so they can fish. Right? They're able to save up money to buy a little John boat to go fish. And that has become this individual, he's on disability, right? But he's got a purpose today. He's cooking for the rest of the guys. And it makes him so happy. And there's so much joy in that. And stuff like that, that alone can help a person stay in recovery. And community. Again, I mentioned a moment ago, we used to hide from the community. But relationships and social networks today definitely help us support friendship, love, and it gives us hope as well. Now, I just made this presentation very recently. We talked in the very beginning. May 16th was the day that this was happening, and I thought it would never be here. It just, poof, appeared. Caitlin's like, are you guys ready? I'm like, what? It's this week? So I'll slow down a little bit. Because I don't know what the length of this particular one is going to take. I didn't practice on this particular presentation, so I will slow down just a tad. But I do have a Red Bull, so I don't know, it might ramp up here in a minute. And I know Nathan's going to hop in a little bit and talk too, and he's been highly caffeinated all morning long. So there's 10 guiding principles. SAMHSA has listed 10 guiding principles in recovery. And we're not going to go over all 10. We are going to touch on 2 of them, though. One of which is many pathways to recovery, and the other is peer support. So as I mentioned a moment ago, as a person in long-term recovery, my more recent introduction to sobriety, to recovery, has been through a 12-step program called AA. It was phenomenal for me, and it worked really well for me. But as I've been able to meet and work with more individuals, I have been able to learn that my way isn't the only way. Now, I thought that for a long time, and I fought that for a long time. But what I've been able to realize is we've got to foster the growth in whatever form it is. We have to foster the change in whatever form that is. We have to encourage individuals to reduce the harm done upon themselves, whatever that is. And as he mentioned a moment ago, that big recovery hug, I've got a graphic later on that kind of talks about that. We all end up in the same place. It looks a little bit different, but we all end up in the same place. So that's why it's so important to really support all these multiple pathways. So a leading study, which is from Faces and Voices of Recovery, he mentioned them a moment ago as well, showed that just over half of those who recover do so with the help of mutual aid groups, followed by treatment, recovery support services, and medication-assisted treatments. Some utilizing more than one type of service. If we work with people in recovery, how many people have worked with individuals that have had multiple different experiences in different aspects of recovery, maybe NA and AA and drug court or DUI court or a variety of different pathways. Not just one works. It didn't work for me the first time. It didn't work for me the third time. It was the fourth or fifth. Thank God for fifth and sixth chances. As defined by the Recovery Research Institute, these pathways fall into 3 main categories: clinical, non-clinical, and self-managed. Clinical pathways of recovery involve professional intervention, therapists, clinicians, and other credentialed professionals. That would be clinical treatment, pharmacotherapy. Is that how I said that, Donald? Pharmacotherapy? Yes. Yes. And medicated assisted treatment, MAT, MOUD, MAR. Now they're changing the terminology for some of these, so I apologize ahead of time if I have misrepresented the terminology and the acronym. And I'm going to stop right there too, because I'll admit, as a person who came through a very narrow program, I did not appreciate that second bulleted item like I do today. I did not appreciate it. With the increase in fentanyl overdoses, with the increase in young people using, that medicated assisted treatment has saved countless lives. And we support it 100%. Behavioral therapy and holistic therapies. Non-clinical pathways include peer-led groups, faith and cult. Well, I'm going to go through these individually here. Peer-led groups. So we have our traditional ones like AA and NA. So AA is for Alcoholics Anonymous, NA is for Narcotics Anonymous. YPR, who's heard of YPR in here? Hey, that is I say up and coming. They are marketing geniuses. I'm sure that I used their wrong color because they have changed a whole new color scheme to represent the mercury and whatever it is. Smart recovery. Again, being in a very narrow channel of recovery for so long, when I first got in, we always heard smart recovery is anti-this or anti-that, and it is not. It is pro-all. It is pro-all. It's a smart, science-based recovery process. Again, we all end up in the same place, that big recovery hug, right? And there's just nameless ones that count. CA, a variety of other ones that we could discuss as well. There's faith and culture-based recovery supports. You have the Wellbriety movement, the Jewish recovery, Celebrate Recovery, which is CR, is pretty popular around here. The Islam Paths to Peace. So there's a variety of different faith-based. So as you can imagine, all recovery pathways aren't the same, right? If you had one individual with one faith-based belief, if you put them in a different one, is that going to work for them, right? Just like AA may have worked for me, but it's not going to work for the next person. Educational-based recovery supports. I can't read that, but that's the Association of Recovery and Higher Education. Now, our closest ones that have these in their campus would be Vanderbilt and University of Tennessee. I did throw Boise State on there because that's where I'm from. And I was proud to see that logo pop up first. They haven't done too well lately, though. And the Association of Recovery Schools, these are for high schools as well. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot listed in our area, but there are a lot throughout the United States. And you'll find in a lot of campuses, they do have recovery-based programs within. They may not be listed under these. I know Murray State has it as well on their campus. So there are a variety of programs like that that work for the younger or school-based individuals or even non-traditional students as well. Recovery housing. We have the National Alliance of Recovery Residences and the KERN, Kentucky Recovery Housing Network. And they've actually just passed a law in Dallas. What is the House bill? 248. They just passed a House bill recently, which I think is really impressive to not encourage, but require by next year in July that recovery residences have a standard to follow. And that's going to encourage people to open up and maintain a safe and stable environment for people getting into recovery housing. So that's really great. And I think they're using a lot of the Oxford House models to move forward with these standards. So keep that in mind if you're in that field. July 2024, you have to either be certified and or applied, right, by then in order to maintain those sober living residences. And recovery community centers. Where'd that arrow go? Oh, that's Turning Point Recovery Community Center. Did I mention that I'm the program director of Turning Point Recovery Community Center? We are staffed with people with lived experience. You know, and Nathan's going to go into some detail here in just a moment about what we do with as a peer support specialist, what we do with our people. If somebody were to walk up, and I'm going to steal this from you just a second. If somebody were to walk up, and they have, what does Turning Point do? It's tough. It's tough to put your thumb on it, right? What do? We do it all. You know, I mentioned a moment ago, somebody who comes into a choice of making a decision to get into recovery generally is left with nothing, okay? Usually no license, no house, no income. We know this because we've been there. And that's why we're so special for our community. It is no cost to the individuals. It is absolutely free. What we try to do is be Switzerland to the recovery community, okay? We try to be the hub, the center of the recovery community. And it has been a game changer in my opinion. I didn't have this whenever I was coming through treatment, but the community is lucky to have it. I think there's 11 RCCs, maybe a few more coming up. You guys got one too at, yeah, you guys got one coming up too. So they're growing. They've seen the importance of recovery community centers in the state. And I'm going to be honest, I was selfish and I didn't put all the other logos up there because I wanted ours to shine the most. But the RCCs in our area, in our state, are granted usually by CORE, which is the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort. If you're from a different state or you travel to a different state and you hear the word or the term RCO, it's the same thing. They have RCOs. But I'll tell you right now, if you're in Western Kentucky and you haven't traveled elsewhere, even out of the state, we are blessed. We are blessed to have the resources that we have in our state and to have the state behind us in the mission of helping people with substance use disorder. We just don't realize it. We talk to our families and friends in different places and they're like, wow, that's amazing you guys have something like that. You need to do that here. I'm like, you know, that's going to take some money. And employment-based services as well. There's a wonderful website called Kentucky Comeback. It's sponsored or powered by the Kentucky Chamber, the Isaiah House, and the Just Trust. But they have a lot of great initiatives where they're helping businesses and individuals for the reentry aspect, incentives for businesses to get people that are in recovery in the workforce as well. And then there's self-managed pathways. Again, a person like me, not going to do it on my own. A person like me, the police had to eventually stop. The judge had to make a decision for somebody like me to stop doing what I was doing in order for me to make a change. But it is on a daily basis that we get to meet individuals who make the choice on their own. It is on a daily basis that we get to meet individuals who make changes on their own without the judge, without the police, without their parents and family telling them to. And that is the most powerful and that requires so much strength. There's a young girl who works with us now, next to us, and we watched her come in on her own and do this, and she's pushing 2 years now, on her own. And it is just powerful. I get chills thinking about it. That is strength right there. But she did it with the support of our community. She did it with the support of our peer supports and made those choices on her own. Now, these numbers here are going to be a little, probably, he said 21 million a minute ago, and I think that's part of the numbers. This was from 2017. 1 in 10 individuals in America are living in recovery or have resolved their alcohol and other drug problem. And that states 22.35 million. I saw the 21 million on there as well. I think that's also the same, and I think 1 in 10 are receiving services. 10%? Yeah. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. You know, who in here believes that somebody can recover from addiction? And why is that? Because you've done it. Who's seen it? Man, that's powerful right there, right? I've seen it. I've done it. And that means that we believe it. And so do these individuals. It's amazing what the power of believing can do. And all these people did it in a way that worked for them. There's no cookie cutter form for recovery. Again, everybody's path is a little bit different. Sometimes we skip and hop paths. Sometimes we run into roadblocks and have to change direction. Sometimes we get sent back to go without collecting $200. Or is that jail? You know, and that's okay because that's our path. As people in recovery, and I can say this for myself, and if those of you who are in recovery may agree, we tend to be judgmental in the beginning when somebody has a return to use, right? We tend to run away like it's infectious. But those moments when somebody has a return to use, or a slip, some might call it, could be some of the most powerful learning experiences that they have. And that can help us find the right path for them. Man, that's a good-looking group of people right there, isn't it? Sue, you were there. You're not in the picture, sorry, but she was up there. We're going to talk about peer support. I'm going to bring Nathan up. This is a picture that we all took while we went to the recovery rally on the old Capitol steps in Frankfort. And to see all of us and all these beautiful people out there sharing their story, to see the Lieutenant Governor and Van Ingram, the Director of the Office of Drug Control Policy up there, sharing the stage with us was so powerful. And we get to do that as people in recovery. All right. And this is Nathan Brockett. Nathan Brockett is our lead peer support specialist at Turning Point. He is also a veteran. He's our veteran peer support as well. And he'll discuss a little bit about that at the same time.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, as Brandon said, my name is Nathan. I've had the pleasure of serving as a peer support specialist for a little over 2 years now, I believe. Also been blessed to work for Turning Point Recovery Community Center. While there, I've been able to hone my skills, not just as a peer support, but as a person in recovery. So yeah, I've been in recovery for about a little over 3 years now, but I'm not just a person in recovery. I'm a father in recovery. I'm a son in recovery. I'm a veteran in recovery. There's so many things that have impacted my life, but I think for me personally, not so much as impacted my life, peer support being the biggest one. And for those of you that aren't, I'm sure most people in here are familiar with peer support, but as Brandon said before, peer support is just, I'm a person with lived experience. I've been there. I've been to the jails. I've been through the depression of not knowing where to go next. I've felt those feelings of abandonment and self-loathing because of where my addiction has taken me and what it's done to me. But I've also found a way out. And that is so important. As Brandon said before, we've been there, we've seen it. And we've been able to walk with people through so many different pathways. I've been able to support people in some of the best times, but also in some of the worst times. What was that? Oh, sorry. Yeah, highly caffeinated. He wasn't lying. But through this process of people striving to reach their best potential, I've been able to kind of guide people. And I may not know the right way every time. I don't. But I learn from other people. So a lot of the benefits of peer support that I've found are I'm able to, of course, walk with people through the recovery journey, but I'm also able to combat the stigma. Stigma is a big thing when it comes to addiction and recovery. You know, stigma and the myths about what it's like to have mental health issues or substance use disorder, things like that. I'm able to help dispel that. Not just me, my team, the people that I work with. We're able to be there and show you that people can and do recover. We're just hope. I'm able to bring the experience of going through my community and navigating these resources like I've had to do it myself. I've had to get my driver's license back. I've had to pay off fines. I've had to do all these things. This isn't something that's new to me. And I've been able to show other people to go through that as well. And it's a very daunting. It is. It can be a little overwhelming, especially like Brandon said, when you come to the door of Turning Point and you're fresh off the street right out of jail and you don't have nothing. What's my next move? Who do I talk to? What do I say? How do I ask for help? And just talking from experience at Turning Point, you come through the front door of our building, you're met with a smile. You're met with a warm welcome. Like, hey, we're glad you're here. How can we help? How can we help you with recovery today? What do you need? Not what I think you should have or what some book says that you should have. What do you need? How can I help you? And that makes people feel so welcome. It makes them have that hope that we constantly talk about through recovery. Hope. So if it wasn't for hope, I wouldn't be here today. If I hadn't seen people do it before me, I wouldn't have believed it. It's crazy. It's magic. I never thought that I would ever get out of the cycle of drug addiction and all those things. And I'm sure plenty of people in here can attest to that. That used to be just a far sight, like it wasn't even real. But the fact that I'm able to not just show people about recovery, I'm able to show them about life too. As I said, I'm a new dad in recovery. I have people that I see on a daily basis that are brand new mothers and fathers, or they're just now learning to live as a parent and dealing with substance use disorder. They're learning how to deal with so many different things at once. And like I said at the beginning, I may not know how to do that, but perhaps I can show you, I can support you. And that is the most important thing, for me at least, just for speaking from experience, and anybody that's in recovery too, support. Support is so gigantic. And being able to be there for people even in their best times. We've been to college graduations. We've been in front of judges asking, hey, give this guy a shot. Give him an opportunity. He's wanting to change. And being part of that plan. And of course, as you all know, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a person in recovery, But peer support doesn't take away from your classic therapy and all that stuff. It's meant to be an addition to it. We're all part of a treatment team. Anybody that's worked in any of this, we support those kinds of things because, of course, everybody knows mental health and substance use disorder go hand in hand. Now, I don't necessarily struggle with any mental health challenges, but I know the people that can help you if you do. You know what I mean? There's so many benefits. Of course, peer support being an evidence-based practice, it's something that's been going on for a while, so they show that this works. I got a little figures here if you don't mind me cheating. It says there's an increased sense that treatment is responsive and inclusive of needs. There is an increased sense of hope and inspiration. That sounds good to me. I like inspiration. I like hope. There's an increased self-esteem and confidence when it comes to interacting with peer support. So I'm able to cheer you on. That always feels pretty good, don't it? I like being cheered on. I'm sorry. I'm not looking for affirmation, but when I do something good and it's the right thing, it feels great. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah. So we support people in identifying their goals, hopes, and dreams and creating a roadmap on how to get there. I remember when I was in treatment, somebody told me that one day my life might become somebody else's survival guide. I thought they were crazy. I was like, what do you mean? How could the things that I've done, the mistakes that I've made, the wrong choices I've made, how can that help someone? Here I am right in front of you today. And I feel as though I may have blazed the path for another person. And I get to meet them every day. And we've amassed, at Turning Point, we went from only having a few people walking through the door to the peer support's putting in work, going out in the community, and letting us know that we're there to, we see a little over 1,500 people a month. That's 1,500 lives that the people I work with, that we've impacted. We get to go out in the community. We're not really just bound by too much. We go out and help people. And as far as the veteran piece, so like Brandon said, I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I've struggled with substance use disorder for a long time. This isn't something that just happened. It's been going on for quite some time. But thinking back, anybody that's ever been in the military or in a military family, you understand the military has values, of course, toughness. You don't talk about your weaknesses. You don't talk about the things that ail you, because a lot of times that might make you look weak. You might make you look like you're not going to do well for a promotion. Maybe you're going up for an NC or an NCO or something like that. That doesn't look good. Commanders probably don't like that. So we were taught not to talk about those things. Or being self-reliant, being tough, being able to carry that weight. That breaks people. And any of you guys that might work with veterans like I do, a lot of them, there's a stigma involved when it comes to asking for help. That's a struggle. I know it was for me. So at Turning Point, I like to be that kind of focal point for veterans and people that are looking to, change their life, what's going on. We have a wonderful staff of people that can deal with PTSD and stuff like that, but as far as substance use disorder, I talk to them about, it's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. Because that sign of weakness that these veterans believe, and you guys all see the figures. It's all over TV. It's all over social media. 22 veterans take their lives a day by suicide. Those are 22 veterans that didn't think that they could reach out for help and get help. You know, they say 60% of veterans that could be helped by these services through the VA, through the community mental health centers, they don't ever ask for help. 60% of those veterans. So the idea is, you know, I've found from just because of my life and what I've experienced, people asking the hard questions. There's some people that come back from war and all different types of things that have seen some stuff. And as human beings, we're not programmed to see those kinds of things. I don't believe. I really don't. So asking the tough questions to these people that you see. If you have a veteran that is struggling, don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Don't be afraid to set the stage for them to speak to you. And always provide, of course, you know, everybody knows the number 988, dial 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line on there. And that's about all I got, man. I appreciate you guys letting me come up here today. I'm really nervous. I'm sweating to death. But so I'm going to let Brandon have it back. Thank you. That's not mine. No.
It's empty now.
I absorbed it.
I didn't even see him pick it up. He's that quick. It could have been me. Sorry. No, we love Nathan, and it's just amazing to, you know, he talks about seeing veterans, seeing all different people walk. Veterans are tough nut to crack, you know. We try to make sure that we're opening the door, and we have safe space signs in our lobby and down the hallway. We try to make sure that everybody who walks in the door feels welcome, feels comfortable, and I think as people who work in the helping field, I think we all share those same values, right? You know, we want to make sure that everybody has access to meetings and groups that works best for them, right? It could be an MAT or an MAR or MARA group, which is to focus on individuals who are partaking in medication-assisted treatment. For so long, they were shunned by the recovery community, and it's so unfair. When you have an individual in another program or another circle stating, "You're not in recovery," how dare you say that? Who are you to say that? You know, we need to support every individual who's making choices to stay alive, who's making choices to make the next right step that is so valuable. We want to have access to other groups and programs for the LGBTQ community, a very underserved community. Asking for help in that community is a tough one, especially in more rural areas. So we want to make sure that those are extremely available to our people. Specialized veteran groups, family support groups. I mean, you name it, it's out there. It may not be as accessible in some areas, but it's out there. So if you have an individual that you're working with and they have a very specific demographic, something that might cause them a little bit of hesitation about going into certain groups for support, reach out to some of your coworkers and your colleagues. There might be a way to get them the support that they need. So very, very important. So again, peer support, you guys might get an early lunch. Is that good or bad? It's good?
It's good, because I need everyone to eat about 2 plates.
I know my team's got it back here. Go Turning Point, yeah. Nathan's got 3. He burns it though, I promise you. He's the lead peer support, and the funny thing is I'm like, "Hey Nathan, can we have the team do this, this, and this?" He's like, "I got it." And then he'll come back 20 minutes later, and he's like, "I did it." I'm like, "What? All of it?" Yes. He's quick. Peer supports is an evidence-based practice, and like Nathan said, you know, it is not to take the place of a clinician or a therapist. It is not. Peer support specialists have specialized training. They get trained in things like CBT or MI or motivational interviewing. So they get the experience to help an individual through a one-on-one session, through making some hard life decisions, but it is not to take the place. The fact that we can self-disclose, you say that to a clinician or a therapist, self-disclose, like, I can't, right? I'm not supposed to. That is part of a peer support's role, is to self-disclose. They teach them not to dump everything out on that individual, to sprinkle your story, but you get to self-disclose. Yeah, I was in prison just like you. Yeah, I have felonies just like you. Yeah, I've been there. Because as you can imagine, and some of us have probably been to the doctor for a very embarrassing condition, right? And imagine if you had to go to 4 different doctors to explain those conditions each time, and then you had to talk to the nurses and explain that, and you had to talk to the front desk staff to explain your condition. It would get a little embarrassing to discuss, especially if those people haven't had that condition before, right? So imagine yourself as a person who's had felonies, who's had addiction issues, explaining those things to people who don't completely understand. It makes it a little bit embarrassing, or you think they don't understand. But if you're faced with a person who's been there and done that, you're going to open up a little bit more. And it makes it a little bit more comfortable. Again, not to take the place of a clinician or a therapist, because you guys are well trained with some very good tools that I have no business using, right? But it is such a valuable asset. It is such a valuable complement to the services that you already provide. I'm looking at several of you in here right now that I know have we've referred back and forth to your clinical setting versus our peer support setting, and it has worked wonderfully. Ashley over here, I don't know how many times she had walked people over personally and introduced them, and that's just an awesome thing to do, you know. The benefits is evidence-based practice. And not only that, the people that work as a peer support, they benefit as well. So not only are they helping the individual on their pathway to recovery, they're learning about what their pathway was like, the peer support does. They're learning about, or reminding themselves rather, on what it was like and what not to do again. And they're actually able to work through some of their own conditions, because I promise you, once you get peer support certified, bad things don't stop happening, right? Once you get peer support certified, you don't make perfect choices the rest of your life. It's not a magic wand. We're still human with what they call character defects, like making a presentation the night before. You know, there's just so many benefits that are mutual, and that's the amazing part of what we do. And lo and behold, being a peer support specialist, that could be considered another pathway to recovery. Working in recovery with people in recovery, that's another pathway, right? You know, so that's why multiple pathways are so important to support. Whether they're coming through jail, whether they're coming through the judge. Where's Casey Law? I just saw her up here a minute ago. Maybe she stepped out. Whether they're coming through family and friends, referral, and whether they're just coming on their own. It is so, so important to make sure that we encourage those individuals who are considering making a positive change in their lives. We encourage them to make those changes. And we support them when they're succeeding. We support them when they fall. We support them along that journey. And as he mentioned a moment ago, you know, we all have these different thoughts of how recovery is. He talked about that recovery embrace. Is that what you called it, Donald? The recovery hug?
I'm not sure. It was all a fall.
Oh, he blacked out at the end. You know, we in another presentation, it's a little goofier than this. It's got a big old smile on it and everything. But we like to look at recovery as a happy house. Inside this house of recovery, things are getting better. Inside this house of recovery, our families are starting to talk to us again. They might even trust us sometimes. In this house of recovery, the law stops following us. And believe it or not, some of you might get this joke, in our house of recovery, the blinds aren't messed up. But in this house of recovery, there are so many doors, right? It does not just look like AA or NA or a 12-step or a faith-based. There are so many doors into this house of recovery. All we want you to do is come on in. Just like he said, that warm hug and embrace. Because inside this house of recovery, life is pretty good. And whatever path leads you to whatever door, that's the most important part as long as you get there. And then here's a nice little Chinese proverb. There are many paths to the top of the mountain, but the view is always the same. It's positive. So that's all I got. All right.